So, Freunde der Spielkultur, wir gucken uns nach ewiger Reederei aus Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2, jetzt im Angespielt, den Golfclub Wasteland an. Das Spiel kommt, glaube ich, wenn das YouTube-Video kommt, heute raus. Es geht darum, dass dekadente Leute auf dem Mars ausgewandert sind und jetzt zur Erde zurückkommen, die inzwischen komplett zerstört ist, um auf der Erde einfach Golf zu spielen. Bisschen krank. Also ein bisschen crazy, aber wir gehen einfach ins Spiel rein mit Leertaste. Am Anfang gibt es eine kleine Sequenz, die habt ihr jetzt nicht gesehen, aber das habe ich gerade zusammengefasst in 2 Sätze, was man da sehen konnte. Man sieht nämlich nur eine Rakete, wie halt ein Marsianer auf die Erde fliegt. Steuerung, Controller, ASWD, Einstellungen, umgekehrtes Ziel, nein, Intro spielen, große Untertitel, gerne, Radio, darf auch ein bisschen Sound drin sein. Neues Spiel starten. Willkommen im Ödland. Ich rannte zum Sperrgebiet, wo das Taxiraumschiff gelandet war.
Hello all you Martians out there. It's your turn, fixed foot soul, with a bit of that old world flavor. You're tuned to Radio Nostalgia from Mars. Breathe easy, kick back, and reminisce.
Take my hand, explain to me this project called humanity. Don't let go while on this ride. There will be no surprise. All I know is that we shouldn't be sad when we think of the road ahead. Take my hand, don't let go. I know we won't get lost. Oh no.
Eine Maus hörte, dass die Ankunft einer Gruppe bedeutet.
Take my hand, don't let go. The signs are fake and the maps are false, but we must go on.
Ich verstehe gerade, warum das Radio so leise war. Es soll übrigens ein sehr tiefenentspannendes Spiel sein. Vielleicht sogar mit einer kleinen Botschaft.
Whisper directions throughout.
Aber die Radiomusik ist sehr entspannt. Genau das Richtige. Nach einem langen Tag voller Lesen und Reden.
This metropolis. Take your earphones off, listen to me, and I'll guide you through this cacophony. People talk, but they've nothing to say. Why would anyone know the way? Take my hand, don't let go. I know we won't get
Ich hätte nur auf den Hügel schmeißen müssen und dann wäre es runtergerollt.
away.
Stadtrand von Alphaville. Es war meine Angewohnheit geworden, sie von der anderen Seite des Sounds beim Spielen zu beobachten.
The signs are fake and the maps are false, but we must go on.
Gebe auf Wasser und andere Hindernisse Acht. Ach. Neuer Tagebucheintrag freigeschaltet.
Take my hand.
Vage träumen, sie trugen Schutzanzüge und sahen wie riesige Insekten mit Jetpacks aus. Im Herausforderungsmodus wird jedem Loch ein Paarwert zugewiesen. Du musst Paar oder darunter erreichen, um zum nächsten Level zu gelangen. Hast du Nerven aus Stahl, es sind keine Fehler erlaubt. Oder Story-Modus. Ach, wir machen Challenge. 3 Schläge. Ich will jetzt ganz kurz mal gucken, ob im Tagebuch mehr Informationen drin sind. Ach so, du holst die Tagebucheinträge dadurch, dass du weniger Schläge brauchst. Da ist Alphabet. Ich sollte bei John Lukes vorbeischauen und mir ein warmes Croissant und ein Espresso holen. Meine Beine sind taub. Ich bin zu alt für diese Ausflüge. Da sehen wir übrigens, wie viele Abschnitte es gibt. 35. Kaum geht's um was.
Start the show. Anna Churchin would take my hand, her sublime take on our wonderful project called Humanity. Beautiful. Plenty more to come into Soul's show, a show packed with stories and music to remind ourselves of where we are and how far we've come. Our first caller for the show calls it like it is, and was, a hard-hitting look back at the last days on Earth from the perspective of a shrewd businessman and loving father. Stories, memories, the good old days. Original sources, authentic tales, hope, inspiration, drama.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
I worked in oil. Brokering gasoline, to be exact. It's a strange business, probably not like you would actually imagine it to be. My day started something like this. I check Reuters and my sheets. See if there's been a change in the fundamentals. See if the spread's up or down. And then when the clock strikes go, I'm on the phone. I could be calling some commercial shop in Bumble, Kansas, where little old Sue loves to know how my daughter's doing. Or I could be trying to get into the head of a powerful Russian who knows the world wants his phone number. That's when the psychology kicks in, and I go to work. If they pick up the phone, they're mine. That's the game. I started when I was 29, 30. My boss was a coked-up, perma-tanned moron who was wasted by lunch. More money than sense. Screaming at waiters because, you don't drink gin out of a glass like that. And Caesar salad is supposed to have 8 pieces. 8 pieces of chicken, you stunted fool. Stunted fool was his favorite insult. It's coming from a guy who was 5 foot and nothing. That was pretty much my life. 24/7. I traveled a lot. Meeting clients all over the world. The Amazon, the Gulf, Siberia, Central Asia, the States, Singapore, everywhere. Looking back, I can't claim that I ever would recommend that life, nor can I claim that I was ever really happy doing it. But it was fun. I mean, talk about your share of moments. There was this one girl, some strange mix of Algiers and Paris, with some sprinkle of Havana, a dancer, naturally. So pretty. She'd turn a priest's head or give a nun a... Sometimes I wonder what happened to her. But we all had the same feeling. This can't last. And sure enough, we were right. First, you couldn't drink the water. Then you couldn't eat the crops. And pretty soon, we wouldn't be able to breathe the air. I remember looking at me and wondering what kind of a future would she have. So I decided to do something about it. The Mars project was Plan B for planet Earth, which was most evidently... The family and I had already put down roots in Tesla City by the time the great catastrophe really hit. The corporation knew my contacts in the world of drilling and refining would be useful. So I adapted my skills to something more practical. Now we are all that keeps this little planet running.
Ach, das ist ja, ich muss bis nach oben drüber.
Martian cement for the buildings. My pure little Emma has a future.
Ich dachte, ich fahre an der Seite runter.
When somebody sits down and writes this all up for the history books, it might just be men like me they'll be hailing as heroes. It's men like me who saved humanity. and like me, who took us further than we ever dreamt possible.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Wow, some pretty heavy stuff. Reminds us that all kinds made it up here to Mars.
Ach
but we're all in
scheiße,
it
jetzt
together
packe
now
ich das nicht.
And remain creatures of the world. You're tight beam to Radio Nostalgia from Mars. Music for the lost days of Earth.
Schlag damit erreicht, der Ball wird sich selbst zerstören. Ich Idiot. Das Radio macht gute Mucke. Kriegt bestimmt auch lauter Copyright-Claims deshalb. Nicht in Twitch, aber auf YouTube. Nein! Ja, war klar. Macht er sich einen Facepalm. Man braucht übrigens für das ganze Spiel wohl nur 2 bis 3 Stunden. Also wenn man einmal das im Story-Modus macht. Deshalb hat es halt eher, glaube ich, auch so einen künstlerischen Aspekt. Werden ja wahrscheinlich auf Radio Mars, also Nostalgie-Radio Mars, noch mehr Leute sprechen darüber, wie die Erde früher war. Obwohl jetzt alles tot ist.
Your home away from home. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Creatures of the world. Now that Attracted takes us back. Stefan Milenkovic pining for blue skies, fast musing on the games we play. Just a reminder that until further notice, there is a moratorium on all team leaders playing card and board games with their teams, following an incident over a game of Monopoly in Section C. All senior section team leaders will convene for emergency counseling and anger management courses. Until then, there'll be no intersectional board game tournaments and no games with groups larger than 4 people at a time per team. In the interim, teams are encouraged to take advantage of the half-ration special on Omas, the delicious and relaxing drink that takes the edge off of everything. Our next caller, Yamil, takes us into her world of food, smells, sensuality, blue skies, and sings us a personal song to remember.
Histoire, mémoire, le bon vieux temps, source originale, fable authentique, espoir, inspiration, drame, musique, radio
Franzose.
de Mars.
I have nightmares. I'm happy to be alive, but I knew many who deserved to live more than I did.
Keine Sorge, so etwas passiert.
But this is a radio program about nostalgia, not guilt. I've been nostalgic since I was 20, when I left Havana. In Europe, I felt different. Each country has a smell. Mars doesn't. Where I come from, the smell of the ocean, mango, bananas, coconut, mama's food, ropa vieja de la abuelita, el con gris, la yuca con mojito, the most beautiful sun on Malecon, the smell of my street when the rain falls, all of that make me into the person I am. So when I left, I grew stronger. I experienced the world, but forever stayed incomplete. So now I'm double nostalgic. We were full of life, laughing on warm nights under blue sky, touching each other. The air filled with the smell of sweat from dancing with Orquesta Aragon playing from an apartment. Now, the only way I can feel this scent is by singing. ¿Cómo fue? No sé decirte cómo fue. No sé explicarme qué pasó, pero de ti me enamoré. Fue una luz que iluminó todo mi ser. Tu risa como manantial.
Das Spiel macht mich wirklich nostalgisch. Dabei gibt's die Erde noch.
Fueron tus ojos o tu boca, fueron tus manos o tu voz. Fue a lo mejor la impaciencia de tanto esperar tu llegada, mas no sé decirte cómo fue. No sé explicarme qué pasó, pero de ti me enamoré.
Slušajte Radio Nostalgiju sa Marsa.
Thank you, Yamil. What a wonderful story. Reminds us that life is about so much more than just base survival. Well, living in space has always been challenging, and here's a song that pokes a little fun at living in cramped quarters. Needs no introduction. Argue all you want. It's a classic.
Take a moment, relax, and remember with Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
A Russian and an American work together in space. A very different sight, From the Cold War arms race, whether Kubrick or Tarkovsky, Solaris or 2001, Melville or Dostoevsky, Yesenin or Jack London, two astronauts argued about art, values and international relations. Two
Aber zu scharf.
Америка убила иракцев, убила Че, Аллегро и Лумумбу. Она убила корейцев и вьетнамцев, распространяя демократию. Don't get me started on Stalin and your talent to suffer under SARS. My friend, your history is long. You also inflicted scars. Two astronauts argued about art, values and international relations. Two astronauts they speak in two tongues, but still for hours they talk. The same oxygen.
Warum stehen eigentlich überall Kühe? Und ihre Euter leuchten.
Same thrill on their spacewalk.
So, einmal im Sand und ich bin verloren.
Two astronauts argue about art, values and international relations. Two astronauts как светит солнце, свет Бога, как прекрасна голубая земля. Говорится, гей из Роскосмоса.
Bleib da liegen.
With home on our mind, on a mission for mankind.
Und rein. Ich hoffe, die Kuh frisst meinen Golfball. Aber ich wusste es. Also entweder geht man den direkten Weg oder ich gehe hier oben drüber. Ich mag, wie sich der Golfspieler aufregt, wenn er daneben schlägt.
Muzika iz starih dobrih dana. Radio nostalgija sa Marsa.
Anna and arguably the first interplanetary hit, Two Astronauts, an anthem to the Great Evacuation, and certainly one of our most popular requests. Speaking of requests, please follow Habitat protocols for sanitation. No liquids other than bodily in the main bin, including pee. Some of you don't like it, but all water is recycled, so pee into the funnel installed next to your toilet, please. Speaking of pee and poop, we recently welcomed our first official little Martian to the colony, and our next caller, Sophia, tells us what it's like to be a new mother on Mars.
I'm so happy we moved to Mars. It was a project I funded from the very beginning. I knew it had potential and I trusted the amazing team working on it. As angel investors, my husband and I got early placements in the ARC ship. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to further human survival in our solar system. Speaking of the human project, I have some exciting news. Just a week ago, we welcomed our baby boy into the world. Words cannot express how overjoyed we are at welcoming little Maxim. Putting him to bed reminds me of my parents. From my window here in Tesla City, we can see the Earth, tiny enough to fit in Maxim's hand. It pains me that my child might never experience the beauty of my home in the Hamptons. The nature, coastline, the old lighthouse, and the food, the houses of our friends, our evening parties, full of life compared to this barren, rugged terrain. I send my little Martian to sleep with a lullaby my mother sang for me. Thanks to these songs, I'm able to retain, at least on a rudimentary level, my mother tongue.
Ach, erzähl doch
She
nicht.
sang like this. Shushti bambusolis, pored moka prozora, noć ticho spušta na grad, sa nebeskih svodova. Noć se tiho spušta na grad, sa nebeskih svodova.
We did ourselves from Mars. Not really.
Thank you, Sophia, for that uplifting news and beautiful song. Life always finds a way.
Das Radio sollten in GTA einführen.
Just as precious as a new life is the water that sustains it. You may have noticed that it doesn't rain here on Mars, so another friendly reminder that showers are strictly limited to 30 seconds each, with no exceptions. Corporate is looking into extending this time frame, but is meeting resistance from Section BC, who want lab rat urine to be excluded from the water recycling program, which would actually reduce allocated shower times to 27 seconds. Want to say in this? Join our sectional weekly meetings and vote while sipping on a relaxing tube of OMAS. Feels good, as it should.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Okay, die Parcours werden wirklich ein bisschen länger.
High speed on the Autobahn, like spaceship Earth around the sun. A diver's breath in a deep blue sea, bubbles like your thoughts of me. Make up sex on a summer's day, like an airplane on a runaway. Melts like ice cream in the sun. Desperate man taking his chance, quick as the kiss at your first dance. Keep your eyes open and don't you blink, you'll miss the boat before it sinks. Slide passes quickly, life bursts like a bomb, like a child in the morning, will soon be gone. So hold it close and don't waste your breath, the time will come when nothing is left, 'cause life passes quickly, it flies by.
Was für Kacke ist das denn? Nicht rausfallen.
High speed on the Autobahn, like spaceship Earth around the sun. Like a tiger's breath in a deep blue sea,
passes like your thoughts of me. Make up six on summer's day. Like an airplane on a runaway. Melts like ice cream in the sun. Doesn't fool anyone. Like a desperate man taking his chance. Quick as the kiss at your
Gleich habe ich alles getroffen unten. Nur nicht die Landeplattform.
Eyes open and don't you blink. You'll miss the boat before it sinks. Slide passes quickly like burst like a bomb. Like a child in the morning, it will soon be gone. So hold it close and don't waste your breath. The time will come when nothing is left. 'Cause life passes quickly.
It flies by.
You're home away from home. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Life passes quickly indeed. Another blast from the past, reminding us to savor each moment as it flies by. Speaking of savoring things, the Health and Well-being Department would like us to remind you that the popping and
Nee,
fizzing
da kann ich
noise
das
your
auch schon wieder
dried fruit
zurücksetzen.
makes when you're adding water is perfectly normal and does not mean it has gone off or is contaminated. The Health and Wellbeing Department would also like to take this moment to remind you to take your bone density pills twice a week now, as it was discovered the original dose is off by a factor of 2. Right, on with the show. Music and dancing have always been a mainstay of stress relief and letting go. Our next caller, Merva, recalls her teenage clubbing days with vivid memories of awkward first kisses and a club experience, invoking a philosophical epiphany.
Stories, memories, the good old days, original sources, authentic tales, hope, inspiration, drama, radio nostalgia from Mars.
So, when I was a kid in Vienna, in high school, we used to learn all the German poets, like best friends Goethe and Schiller. But
Ach, die haben
the
Wich.
first poet that actually spoke to me was Heinrich Heine. I knew a couple of Heine's poems by heart.
Und auch wirklich eine Deutsche.
now buried somewhere
Das Radio hat lauter andere
in my mind.
Gruppen. Es war vorhin
But one
Französin,
passage about burning books stuck with
dazwischen
me,
war eine
even till today.
irgendwie aus dem Ostblock, jetzt
just
ist eine
to fast
Deutsche.
forward to college, just a couple of years before the Great Catastrophe, I was walking around Berlin with a group of friends coming from a house party. Phew, I still remember that apartment smelling of potatoes. Yes, because we always made pommes and drank schnapps before heading out. Yeah. And
Klischees.
after that, I remember passing by Alexanderplatz on that very, very hot
Ach,
night.
da war ich auch schon.
And next to me was a guy I liked. We kissed before, but I can't say I really remember that. Probably from all the drinking, or maybe he was just a bad kisser. But I can still feel this sticky, sweaty, and very ambivalent feeling of us holding hands. Yeah, anyways, we popped some pills and entered our techno church that, well, now when I think back, I visited more often than my college. And I remember the beat in my chest and all these young bodies moving in this industrial space. I used to love dancing and counting beats in techno songs, but one song was very strange. It just went repetition, 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 and then this female vocal would creep out of nowhere. And then suddenly I felt very dizzy, so I sat on the ground and held my knees closely to my chest. It was some sort of like protective instinct. I was like an animal. And I felt cold sweat dripping down my neck. Ugh. And I'm sure my guy thought I was completely crazy. And then out of nowhere, the Heine lines clearly came to me. I sat there motionless, surrounded by the ugly, hypnotic, delirious atmosphere.
Vielleicht ist es einfach zu spät für mich für sowas,
No
ey.
effort to recall Heine's lines. They were just there, planted in my head. Wilde, düstere Zeiten dröhnen heran und der Prophet, der eine neue Apokalypse schreiben wollte, musste ganz neue Bestien erfinden. Und zwar so erschreckliche, dass die älteren johannischen Tiersymbole dagegen nur sanfte Täubchen und Amoretten wären. Die Götter verhüllen ihr Antlitz aus Mitleid mit den Menschenkindern, ihren langjährigen Pfleglingen und vielleicht zugleich auch aus Besorgnis über das eigene Schicksal. And yeah, 2 years later, I ended up here, on Mars.
Und das als für eure Pillensüchtige.
That does bring back memories of university days and sweaty club nights. Earthly hedonism at its finest. For the record, corporate does not endorse or advocate the use of psychedelic drugs and reminds you, dear listeners, that Class A drugs are just as illegal here on Mars as they were on Earth. Okay, disclaimer out of the way, we actually have a surprise for Mirva. We tracked down that weird song in her head and dug it out of the archives for all to hear. Grab a tube of Omas and enjoy the ride while sipping on pure calm.
Ach
The
ja.
deepest tunes, the warmest memories. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Repetition, 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 repetition.
Kein Wunder, dass es einen Story-Modus gibt. Repetition. Repetition. Repetition, 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 repetition. Oh, was ein Schwein. Ich komme mir wirklich vor wie in der Berliner nächtlichen Szene-Club-Party. In meinem Drink war nichts. So viel dazu, ihn in die Röhre zu bringen. Dann kommt er nicht da oben wieder raus. Auf der anderen Seite. Ah ne, hier schon. Ich dachte, der wird da oben rauskommen. Weiter gibt's einen Knopf. Tja, wenn der Winkel mal stimmen würde. Plöpp. Die Kunst überdauert alles. Auch schön, dass es keine Verstecke auf den in den Levels gibt. Also so ist das ja ein grundsolides Spiel. Kannst ja nichts gegen sagen. Kacke. Wenn ich jetzt nicht so scheiße wäre im Abschlag. Was? Du kannst nicht durch die Scheibe fallen? Ah, doch.
You're listening to Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
Ich glaube, das ist nicht regelkonform.
No wonder that song got into her head. But with a little help from some friends, she pulled through. Another thing that can get into your head is living conditions here on Mars. Life up here on Mars can get a bit overwhelming at times, so along with the soothing OMAS drink, no stress, no fuss, it bears mentioning that wellness counseling is mandatory for all team members, regardless of rank or tenure. The wellness sessions are completely confidential and anonymous, but do remember that all conversations are monitored and recorded for security reasons, and you must have your ID badge and sectional access pass visible at all times. Okay, time for another story. Our last caller for Tussol's show is Francesco, who tells a haunting tale of his last days on Earth as the Great Catastrophe kicked into high gear.
Stories, memories, the good old days, original sources, authentic tales, hope, inspiration, drama, radio nostalgia from Mars.
It was an extremely humid summer. My parents would not let me out because of the floods in Italy. My father went outside. He was working in the greenhouse on the vineyard, and my mother was a doctor. She read Italian fairy tales to me. I was very small, but I remember many days when our neighbors would gather at our house and make plans. It rained heavily at night. They would only say to me, "Powerful people want to take my great-great-grandfather's land." But one image stuck in my memory. It was daybreak. I woke up and I could faintly hear in the dark.
Shit.
Only later understood the history behind this song. Outside I saw men and women, my father and mother, rifles in their hands. My father was crying and singing. I was at the door of the house. My mother turned, smiled at me, but it was a mysterious, confident smile. Cara moglie che tu non mi senti, raccomando ai compagni vicini di tenermi da conto i bambini, che io muoio col suo nome nel cuore.
Shit.
Of course, I had no idea where they were buried. Traditori, signori ufficiali, che la guerra l'avete voluta, scannatori di carne venduta e rovina della gioventù.
Oh, ich bin aber jetzt auch am Verkacken mit den letzten Schlägen.
12 years later, the Mars mission. In a way, the people who killed my parents found me in Italy and recruited me. Saved me, you can say. It is ironic, no? My parents fought for freedom. I cannot say I'm free here on Mars.
Ah!
They took my semen this morning for the population increase program. Here, on Mars, often in the middle of the night, I
Nein! Ja, Mr. Nonconform, 4 Jahre.
Tu sei maledetta per ogni cuore che sente coscienza. Dolorosa ci fu la partenza.
Nein. Ne, da kann ich das wieder starten.
Il ritorno per molti non fu. O Gorizia, tu sei maledetta per ogni cuore che sente coscienza. Dolorosa ci fu la partenza e il ritorno.
Übrigens habe ich das Gefühl, ich bin CTF Nitro gerade. Ne, CTF Neo war das ja.
Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
Das kannst du auch knicken. Warum habe ich das denn vorhin perfekt geschafft und jetzt dümpel ich hier so rum? Ach komm schon. Kann ich das kleine Kind da unbedingt abschießen? Ich hätte einfach den Story-Modus machen sollen. Obwohl, es bringt ja auch nichts, wenn du auf den Boden fällst oder in irgendeine komische Position fällst. Ändert das ja nichts. Bleibt ja trotzdem scheiße dann. komm. Nein, was? Na, von da kann ich wenigstens hoch. Wenn ich es nicht scheiße mache. Also ich finde, Golf macht schon sehr aggressiv. Ich weiß nicht, wie man sich auf dem Golfplatz überhaupt vernünftig benehmen kann wie ein Mensch. Ich würde nur rumrennen und Leute beleidigen. Oh ja. Ah! Ah! Meh. Überhaupt nicht aggro. Weil dieses Spiel einfach so entspannend ist. Die besten Songs, die wärmsten Erinnerungen, Nostalgiefunk vom Mars. Damit wären wir am Ende der Show. Das war wirklich ein Erlebnis.
Music, stories and memories. Radio Nostalgia from Mars has it all. If you want to be involved with RNFM, have a story to tell, a memory to share, contact us via the usual internet channels and leave a short message outlining your contribution. Once your story idea is vetted and greenlit by corporate, we'll track you down to organize a time to record you. Please note that not all stories are accepted and we are not permitted to give out criteria, so stories and ideas are submitted at your own risk. A big thank you to our show sponsor, OMAS, the no stress, no fuss drink for the ultra elite. And a big thank you to corporate for allocating us this precious time and their resources on this title to you. I hope you've enjoyed the show. It's been a pleasure to take your hand. We're playing out with Crowded in My Mind, a song that always reminds us that no matter how cramped and stuffy we feel, in the end, there is always a breath of fresh air in memories of blue skies.
Muzika iz starih dobrih dana. Radio Nostalgija sa Marsa.
Weil wenn das schon das Gesamtradio war, haben sie nicht berechnet, dass jemand so lange fürs Spiel braucht. Nee, kann nicht sein. Mir wurde gesagt, es soll so 3 Stunden dauern, wenn man es halt wirklich auf Challenge-Mode spielt. Hau raus. So, jetzt wird das was. Egal, ich hatte genug Schläge übrig.
Crowds in New York, crowds in Berlin, crowds in Tokyo, Paris, London, Shanghai, Belgrade, Rio, Bombay.
Die Eichhörnchen klauen übrigens meine Bälle, wenn die runterfallen.
Crowded on the screens, crowds on the phones, crowds in the papers, crowded sounds in the wind. It's crowded in our minds, so crowded in our
Nein! Das war aus Versehen. Mars-Musik einfach, ey. Anscheinend hat sich die Trance-Techno-Szene auf dem Mars ganz schön durchgesetzt. Andere Künstler konnten nicht gerettet werden von der Erde.
So crowded in your mind.
Gibt es einen Multiplayer? Nein, es ist wohl eine Singleplayer-Spielerfahrung. Ach scheiße, im Laub geht der Ball auch verloren. Crowd is Los Angeles. Crowds in Bangkok. Na komm. Ihr dämlichen Eich... Ach, danke, Eichhörnchen. Welche Überraschung. Ich hoffe, ich kann den Ball mit der Kanone schießen. Wo fängt's an? Oh mein Gott, ich sehe schon, ich muss den Wind nutzen. Heißt das, ich muss im richtigen Moment in die Luft schlagen, wo der Wind dann kommt?
Please stand by for next transmission.
Nee.
Please stand by for next transmission in 30 seconds. Please stand by for
Also wir haben
next
19 von
transmission
35 Leveln gemacht fürs
in 20
angespielt.
seconds.
Ganz interessant. Ich weiß, ich glaube, es soll eigentlich einen künstlerischen Anspruch haben.
In 10 seconds.
Also das Radio ist da ganz nett.
In 5 seconds.
Aber dieses Golfen bringt mich zur
In
Weißglut.
1 second.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Yeah, to all you Martians out there, welcome to another edition.
Ach, es gibt mehrere Ausgaben vom Nostalgiefunk. Obwohl, muss sein.
Plenty of great stuff coming your way onto Soul Show. You know, bit of that old Terran flavor. Some more stories from our beloved callers, and news and views from around our base out here among the stars. Like I said, your tight beam to Radio Nostalgia from Mars. Breathe easy, kick back, and reminisce.
Das Spiel soll entspannen. Das macht mir aber so aggressiv, das Golfen. Tschüss, Ball. Ach komm, erzähl nicht. Ich wollte versuchen, da unten reinzukommen. Ich fand, der Wind hat mir nicht viel gebracht oben. Da muss ich wahrscheinlich in die Röhre schießen. Dann kommt er vielleicht hier raus und fliegt darüber. Also der Schwierigkeitsgrad hat angezogen mit der Zeit. Und zwar nicht ohne. Aber es ist eigentlich ein guter Zeitpunkt, das Angespielt zu beenden. Die Karte wirkt schon so schwer auf mich, dass ich wahrscheinlich jetzt Ewigkeiten dran sitzen werde. Wenn sich dafür interessiert, unterstützt die Entwickler Golfclub Wasteland. Freundlicherweise zur Verfügung gestellt von den Entwicklern, um mal reinzugucken. Mit Radiomaß. Menschen kommen zur Erde zurück, um hier Golf zu spielen. Weil auf der Erde ja sonst nichts mehr ist.